Hello and welcome to the Faces of Africa Pocket Edition, where we dissect and discuss the topics covered in our weekly documentary show, which takes you through the continent's history, cultures, and major issues through exploring great personalities. This week on Faces of Africa podcast, we're taking you to Mali, a documentary in that country called A Gun for a Guitar, focusing on a man called Ahmed Ag Kaedi. We're talking about the security situation in that particular country up until now. To join me to discuss this is Simon Thangu. He is the camera person who shot this particular documentary. So I think it will be interesting to have him tell us his experience and what he thinks about the security situation in Mali. Thank you so much for making time for us.
It's a pleasure.
Right, Simon, I'd like to know from your experience, how was it filming this particular documentary in Mali, knowing the kind of conflict and security challenges are in the country?
It's quite a long time. You're talking about that was in 2016, but I can still remember the situation, how it was. While filming The Gun for a Guitar, the security in Mali was starkly, the challenge was starkly evident. We had military checkpoints in so many areas. We had restricted areas, and the perceived fear among the locals underscored the volatility of the situation. Yet, in the midst of this backdrop of conflict, I witnessed kind of resilient culture that refuses to be silenced. Musicians, for example, continue to create and share their art, often as a form of resistance and hope. It was clear that while insecurity affects every aspect of life, Mali's people and their culture expressions remained a powerful counterpoint to this violence. This resilience highlighted an important, always importance of supporting communities as they strive to perceive or preserve their identity and rebuild their lives.
Interesting that you really observe that, but as you can see, the conflict is still ongoing in Mali. It's not a stable country as it is at this particular point. What, in your opinion, do you think actually causes the security challenges in that country?
Mali's security crisis is rooted in a mix of historical, political, and economical challenges. Mm-hmm. There have been decades of neglect of the northern regions by the central authorities, which created deep grievances among the communities, particularly the Tuareg groups. This, coupled with the corruption, weak institutions, and porous borders, has created a fertile ground for the armed groups and the criminal networks to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From that particular point, we understand even at that time, there was presence of Al Qaeda, the terrorist groups in that particular area that you see in Mali, it's largely Muslims. And then the terrorist groups came in like Al Qaeda. Do you think that affected Mali's stability or is still affecting Mali's stability?
The infiltration of the Islamic state and the terrorist groups has transformed Mali's conflict from localized grievances into parts of a broader kind of jihadist insurgency. These groups have carried out high-profile attacks on civilians, security forces, and international peacekeepers as well. Mm-hmm. Of course, they exploit the weak governance, offering alternative authority structures in areas where the state is absent or kind of ineffective, if I would use that word. By aligning themselves with local disputes, such as the ethnic conflicts, they deepen divisions and make peace building a harder task to the authorities. So their influence has turned Mali into a hub for extremists, threatening not only the national, but even the regional stability. We're talking about the whole region of Sahel.
Mm-hmm. Do you think ethnic communities play a role in this conflict? I mean, even when you watch the documentary, Ahmed, as much as he put down his gun for a guitar, for music, there is a certain type of culture that is within the community in itself. Do you think ethnic communities itself has played a role in the conflict that is still ongoing?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ethnic tensions, particularly between the land herders and the farming communities. I'm forgetting their name. There's the farming communities are a significant driver of violence. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
These conflicts are often sparked by competition over scarce resources, but have been magnified by the involvement of the armed groups who use these divisions to recruit and consolidate their power. So basically what they are doing is that they are using the conflict among the communities as a weapon against the same communities. So the lack of effective conflict resolution mechanisms adds to the entire problem.
Right. Let's talk about the borders then. The security situation, the security crisis that's happening in Mali. Do you think it's affecting countries along the border, especially in the Sahel region? Talking about the Burkina Faso, for instance. What role do you think Mali's security is playing in affecting security in those countries?
Without a question, yes. Mali's crisis has spilled over into the neighboring countries like Niger and Burkina Faso, where similar dynamics of weak governance and extremist insurgencies exist. So this region instability has created one of the world's most pressing humanitarian crises, with millions displaced and widespread food insecurity. It also complicates the international efforts to stabilize the region. That's the Sahel region.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah. Al-Hassan Abdulaziz, right? He has just been sentenced by ICC, the International Criminal Court, to 10 years over war crimes. He's been accused of, rape and a lot of cruelty when it comes to the people in Mali when he was there as a police chief. What are your thoughts on that?
Interesting. Al-Hassan Abdulaziz 10-year sentence by the International Criminal Court, that's the ICC. I would describe this as a bittersweet outcome for victims in Mali. On one hand, it marks an important step in holding the perpetrators of war crimes accountable, recognizing the suffering inflicted during the occupation of Timbuktu, including the destruction of cultural heritage and the enforcement of the harsh measures there. However, many people feel that the 10-year sentence does not fully reflect the gravity of these crimes. While it provides some justice and acknowledgement of the pain, it also highlights the limitations of the international justice systems in addressing the full scope of harm caused by such atrocity there. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I will say true justice will require addressing the root causes of violence and providing reparations to rebuild trust in the system.
Thank you so much, Simon, for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Remember, you can watch this documentary on our CGTN platforms. On Sunday, it runs live at 12:30 East Africa time, 17:30 Beijing time, and 9:30 GMT.